Hi guys, my name is Angèl. Welcome to the Freelance Business Month. Today we're going to talk about the recipe for a strong personal brand. Please ask your questions in the chat and I will be able to answer them at the end of my presentation. So, let's start. So as I told you, today we're going to talk about the recipe for building a strong personal brand. Before I'm going to talk to you about what personal branding is, I would like to share a few misconceptions about what personal branding is not. It is not building a professional image versus personal image. Those are not two separate things. Personal branding is about you, the whole you. It is also not about creating a fake image. In today's online and social world, people will see right through it. We only brand real people. The next misconception is about branding in general. There are different fields of branding. Personal branding concerns branding a person, and company branding concerns branding a company. Of course, both can enhance each other. Personal branding is also a little bit different from visual branding, and visual branding has to do with what your website looks like or your logo. Of course, these are elements of your personal brand. They can be elements of a personal brand. Not every personal brand needs a logo, but it's something different. Sometimes when I speak to people about personal branding, they are afraid that there will no longer be room for quality content, and that's not true. It is very important indeed to show what kind of expertise you have, to be able to show the world what kind of thought leader you are. Of course, the outside matters too, but we will not forget the quality content. Another concern that people sometimes have is that they have to become famous in order to have a really strong and successful personal brand. That is partially true, because you can become famous in your own niche. It can be a goal to become famous in your niche, but it doesn't have to be. It's up to you what you would like to accomplish with your brand. And then the last misconception is that personal branding is always about you, because it's not. Personal branding is not a me show, as you can see. So we will not be sharing things about you all the time. What we can do, well, I will tell you in a minute. Now that you know what personal branding is not, I would like to share with you what personal branding is. If you Google the term personal branding, you will find a lot of definitions. The one that I like best, and the strongest one I think, comes from Jeff Bezos. He once said, your brand is what people say about you when you're not there with them in the room. So this can be about the person, about a product, or about your company. And this image that people have about you, that is something that we can influence, and therefore we use branding. Let me share a little bit about the power of personal branding with this example from Oprah. Maybe you remember that Oprah took a stake in Weight Watchers a few years ago. And on this slide, you see a few examples of what happens when a personal brand says something and what it does for the company it's talking about. For example, the first tweet that Oprah did was when she announced her stake in Weight Watchers. She posted that one in 2015, and immediately after this post, the share of world Weight Watchers increased with 105%. So that was already a great investment for Oprah, if you ask me. A few months later, she posted a video on Twitter saying that she ate bread and she still lost weight. So again, how did she do this is something that people would like to know, but more important, the share of Weight Watchers increased with 18%. And then a few years later, Oprah held a speech on the Golden Globes, and this speech exploded on Twitter. People were saying she should be the next president. And what happened is, again, the share of Weight Watchers increased with 13%. So this is the power of personal branding. It can even be more powerful than the brand itself, the company brand. A few more examples on this slide. On the right side, you see a few company brands, and on the left side, you see a few personal brands. And what you can see on this slide is the difference in followers and subscribers on channels from personal brands versus company brands. And in this slide, we compare those because, for example, if you take a look at PewDiePie, he has his own YouTube channel, one of the most popular channels, but he uses the software from esports gaming. What he does is he's a sports gamer, and he comments on his own games, and people can follow him playing these games. So, and the same thing goes, for example, for Michelle Phan. She has her own YouTube channel. Maybe you know her from her beauty tutorials, and she uses, for example, products from L'Oreal. Now, on this slide, you can see that the personal brands usually have a lot more followers than the company brands, and that is why company brands want to work with them as an ambassador, because influencers in this case have a much larger reach than company brands with their logos. So this is a way that it is a win-win for both. And then there's something else I would like to share with you. I call it the Google test. And the Google test is a simple test that Google does to rate the quality of a website. And there are three things, that Google looks at while determining the quality of a website. The first thing is expertise. Can I find knowledge of an expertise on this website? Does it show that you are an expert? The second thing is authority. Are there other people that trust this website as a trustworthy source? And the last one is trust. So, can I trust the information that is displayed on this website? And the funny thing is, I wrote a blog about it a few years ago, is that the way that Google rates websites on its quality has a lot of similarities with the way that we as people rate other people online. So for example, if you want to determine if you want to work with someone, these are also three key things that you look at to decide if you want to contact them. For example, is this a man or woman well known in his or her field? What is his or her expertise? Is it something that I can make use of, that I can learn from, that I need? The second thing is authority. So is this person an authority in his or her field, or is it a beginner? What do you need? And the last one is, can I trust this person? Of course, very important. I will tell you in a bit a few steps that you can take to check how your own personal brand is doing. So you can do the Google test for yourself. Before I do that, I would like to share that sometimes people tell me, well, I don't do anything online, so Google will not find anything about me. Well, that's no longer true. If somebody else shares something about you, it can end up in the Google results, and you don't even know what it says because you probably never take a look at it. So you might as well share some content yourself and know what Google will display about you when people Google you. So I always say, if you don't tell your story online, Google will write one for you. Now, why is this Google test important? These are the 4 steps I spoke to you about earlier. The Google test is important because if you know these steps, you can help people to have the right image about you and take the next step. For example, contact you or make an appointment or call you for a job interview, whatever you would like to accomplish with your brand. The first step is people, of course, have to know you. So when they Google your name, what will they find? If you have a difficult name, then make sure that people will know how to write this name, or Google will give a suggestion what it should be. If you have a common name, make sure that you brand your name with one important area of your expertise. For example, if you have a common name and you work in real estate and that is what you want to be found for, make sure that people type real estate or something like that behind your name, and Google will suggest it more often. So when people know you, the next step is they have to like you. And what can you do online to be able for people to get to like you is, for example, share videos, share blogs, share podcasts, whatever content you can make, or comment on their content on social media. So people, when they do some research, they can like or not like you. And that's not a problem if people don't like you, because they probably will not be your client or invest in you or whatever. But at least give them some content that helps them to like or not like you, at least determine what they think about you. The third step is building trust, and that's a very important step in every personal brand building. How can you do this? Well, for example, people will trust you if they know that you helped somebody else successfully. Preferably somebody like you with the same questions and the same problems and frustrations. So what can you do to increase trust? Make sure that you have a lot of good reviews, testimonials about what it's like to work with you. That helps people to trust you. And then the last step, it says buy here, but I would say a call to action is very important. So make sure that people can find you online, can find your contact details, your email or your phone. Make it easy for people to find these. And give them a next step. What is the next step? What would you like to do? Would you like to make an appointment? Would you like to have a call? Would you like to connect with someone on a social media platform? Ask people what you want from them. So if you want to assess your own personal brand, do this for yourself. Do a Google search, log out from your own Google account first, or use a private browser, and do these first steps and see what comes up. It might really help you. So as promised, now I will share with you the recipe for a strong personal brand. And there are 4 ingredients for building a strong personal brand, and I will share them all with you today. So the first ingredient is authentic value. And this word consists of 2 words, which I will explain shortly. The first word is authentic, and authentic means something is unique, real, and sincere. So think about it. What about you is unique, real, and sincere? So the second word is value, and value can be explained in 2 different ways. First of all, the objective value. So what is the price? What does something cost? What's the price tag that's attached to it? The price usually is the same for you and the same for me. Of course, you can negotiate, but on the first hand, the price is always the same. That's the objective value. Second, there is also the subjective value, and that's different from objective value because this means what value do you attach to something. And I have a little example here. Here you see a coffee cup, which costs €2, of course, with coffee inside of it. So this is non-branded coffee. There are people that rather have branded coffee, such as this one, and they pay a lot more for it. For example, €4 or €5 for this brand for 1 cup of coffee. Is this coffee better? Does it taste better? Does it smell better? It depends. If you ask person A, he or she will say yes, and person B will say no, I really don't like this coffee and it's too expensive. But what I would like to say with this is it depends on who you ask. And the subjective value, that's what branding is. So you can influence this image that people have, and you can image the value that someone attaches to something. To make that a little bit more clear, I would give you this example of Richard Branson. In this slide, you see a few images that reflect his brand, and you can do this for yourself as well. In these images, you can see what kind of core values are attached to him as a person. He is innovative, he is a risk taker, he is an adventurer, he's competitive. I don't know if you read his biography, but his book, you will definitely find these 4 characteristics. Let me explain. On the first picture, you see all the way on the left, you see him driving a tank. And what's happening here? This was the launch of Virgin Cola, his own brand new Coke brand. And what he did is he crushed the competition. So these Coke cans that are on the street are, for example, Coca-Cola cans. And it's not just anywhere in the world. It is on Times Square in New York. So talk about being a risk taker and competitive. Here you can see it. The second picture is about one of his very adventurous travels, and this is one of the few attempts that he tried to go around the world with a hot air balloon. I think the first time he failed, but he kept going, and in the end, I think he succeeded. So again, very adventurous, a risk taker, and very innovative. And the last picture all the way on the right, you see what happens when Mr. Branson makes a bet with one of his competitors. They decided that if whoever lost the bet had to do the service in the airplane of the competition, dressed up as a female flight attendant. So in this picture, you can see that he lost the bet, but he kept his word and he did the service and dressed up like a woman. And it was great press too, because there are all kinds of pictures. You can find them all over the internet. So think about this. What is this like for yourself? If you go through your own pictures about yourself, what kind of pictures will you find? And what do those pictures say about you? What are your core values as a personal brand? And how do you show them to the world? The second ingredient is a value proposition. And the value proposition is what makes you unique compared to somebody else who does exactly the same thing. So, for example, if you are a photographer, ask yourself, What makes you different from another photographer? Are your pictures better? Are your pictures different? Are the things that you uh, um, photograph, are they different? Do you only photograph animals or people or buildings, or do you have a previous education that you incorporate in the way that you take your pictures? Does it have to do with the way that you sell your product? Can be all kind of things. Usually it's not one thing, it's a package of more than one thing, usually different things, what that makes you unique. But think about it, what is it, and mm, how can you make sure that this is in your key message? So incorporate this in your message. Okay, that went a bit wrong. Okay, here we go. Imagine that you already have both ingredients, so you already know your authentic value and your value proposition. That's great, but probably nobody hears it yet. So you have to do something about it, and that is ingredient number 3, which is your ideal client. And your ideal client is a group of people with the same needs, problems, frustrations, or interests. If you know this group, usually you have more than one group, ideally between 3 and 5 different groups. If you know these groups, if you know who these people are, it is easier to craft a message for them. And if you know this, then step into the shoes of this ideal client, ideal audience, who wants to know what's in it for me. This is usually the most difficult step of the 4 ingredients. So don't beat yourself up if you don't have this right away. It takes time. And the best thing to find out is talk to your ideal client. Ask questions. You can do that with a survey or just a few great conversations. It can even be friends who fit your ideal audience. Now, if you have all these 3 ingredients, so your authentic value, your value proposition, and your ideal audience or your client, you can still be a hidden talent. So, what do you need to have a strong personal brand? That is ingredient number 4. We call this an effective medium. An effective medium are the channels, can either be online or offline, the channels you choose to connect with your ideal audience. Choose the right channels and ways to get your message across. And I would like to give you a quick tip. Rather than be mediocre on 10 platforms, be a rockstar on 1 or 2. Now, about these online channels or offline channels, I will give you an example what you can do to share your online story. For example, you can start blogging. You can start your own blog on your own website, or you can try pitching your blog on guest blogs. These are different websites that have a larger audience, and you can work with them in the way to broaden your own reach and find a new audience. Second, you can of course also make vlogs or do some live streaming, for example, Q&As. Some people do ask me anything sessions in a few times a week or a month, which are short sessions, and people can ask you anything about your expertise. You can give them advice. Another thing you can do to share your story online is make use of visuals, and there are all kinds of Visuals, you can use, of course, regular photos, but you can also do like memes or quotes, create GIFs or infographics. Or you can do a podcast, which is like an online radio show. And it is possible to post them on the well-known podcast platforms such as Spotify, and of course also on Apple. The next thing is you can also, of course, record like a webinar. This can either be free or a paid webinar. Whatever you choose whatever suits you and your audience best. So if you hate making videos, after 10 videos that will not get any better, probably. And people will see this. People will see right through it, so don't do it. On the other hand, if your audience never takes a look at videos because they don't like it, or they don't like to read long blog posts, then you might consider not doing that, even though you like it. So whatever suits you and your audience best. Of course, you can also share your story offline. We tend to forget that sometimes. And when I say offline, I usually say, for example, networking or contacting the media, because there are still very nice news outlets that you can use to share your story and your opinions. And if you do this, usually you get the best of both worlds, because if your article or interview is featured in a magazine or like a paper, usually this article will also be featured online. So that's best of both worlds. Offline creates boundaries, whereas online usually does not. But these boundaries can even help you. You can be featured in the local media versus national media, or even globally. Whatever suits you and your message best. Whatever you do, don't spam. Build relationships instead. You do not want to spam your potential customers or people you want to work with, and you do not want to spam journalists either. It's all about building relationships. Of course, you can pitch your story with them, but do not spam press lists with addresses. Make sure you prepare every email you send out to a journalist before you send it out. And the good thing is, if you are working with media and PR, you don't always have to be the news. You can also hijack the news. Sometimes something happens that you have an opinion about, or it is about your area of expertise. And then you can pitch your quote or your idea to a journalist, or you can use it online or for a newspaper offline to show your opinion about this topic. And think about how you can reuse your content. For example, if you wrote a great blog, this can also be a column. You might have to change a few things maybe, but you don't have to start over again and think about a new topic. So there we are. We have the recipe for a strong personal brand. Let me resume. First, the first ingredient is authentic value. Then the value proposition aimed at your ideal audience or client. And the last one is an effective medium. So you don't have to be everywhere. Pick and choose in the right way. So that was it. Thank you for being part of this event. You can find me on LinkedIn. If you like to connect, please do. And of course on my website, which is in Dutch and in English both. Please go to www.nijskensbranding.agency. And of course, you can also connect with me on this event platform. So thank you for being here and have a great day.